Hello everyone and welcome to a brand new lecture. In this lecture we're going to cover chapter 9 of your syllabus, which is the foundations of group. So here we are going to introduce some key concepts and theories about developing a groups in organizational context. The key contents that we're going to cover are outlined here. So we'll start with finding the definitions and classifying different types of groups. Then we'll see the model of a group development. Then we'll talk about few terminologies and concepts attached with group. So that's how the contents are going to be developed, and so as the lectures. So let's start. Let's start with our first content, which is defining and classifying the groups. First of all, how do you define a group? Well, of course, you need at least two individuals to form a group. So two or more individuals, they interact and interdependent. So that means they will be communicating among themselves and they are interdependent. Interdependent refers to what? Refers to that they are connected to each other. So whenever they are doing something, that means for a specific project or a specific job, their jobs are connected to each other. So if one goes ahead, if another falls behind, that means it's not going in right directions. So that is why the terminologies which are interactive and interdependence are important, and why they have come together, or why they actually forming group, because to achieve particular objectives. So from an organizational point of view, the groups are actually formed by more than two individuals. They are connected to each other, they communicate each other, and of course for achieving particular objectives for the organization. So that is how we can identify a group within an organization. Now, in classifying the groups, normally we have two types. One is formal and another is informal. So formal is mostly related to the organizational structure. So it's defined by the organizational structure with designated work, assignments, and establishing tasks to meet goals. So first of all, they have some designated tasks or assignments to do. So it's not just they form groups without any objectives. So to achieve that objectives, a group always has been provided with some specific task and specific jobs. Maybe, for example, you can talk about a sales group or sales team. That's what we say. But remember, when we are going through this contents, don't bring the term team, because there is a slight difference between group and teams. So here we will be focusing only on group. So whatever we'll be doing here is based on group. So we'll learn the difference between those two terms later, but for now we'll be focusing only on group. So for an organization, maybe they have some specific objectives. For that, the individuals team up to form a group, and within that group they are achieving their objectives. How? By interacting and doing some interdependent work. Whereas informal group, they are neither formally structured nor organizationally determined. So that means within an organization, we don't find informal group. So how does that appear, or how does that form in terms of informal groups? They appear naturally in response to the need for social contact. So that means it has nothing to do with your organizational objectives, but it just forms naturally. Maybe, for example, if you work in a firm, you may form some informal groups. Informal groups like you're meeting with each other, you're going out for dinner, going out for some of your personal activities. So these types of informal groups, it has nothing to do with the formal groups. Also, it has nothing to do with the organizational objective achievement, but they do form out of our natural contact and social issues. Therefore, those formal groups have some influence on the behavior and performance. Like they can make you groups more effective or more efficient, or less effective, less efficient in terms of affecting the behavior. So although the organizations are not concerned or are not forming any informal groups, however, those informal groups have some influences on these formal groups, because when you meet by the you know issues of social contacts or natural issues, like you meet with each other for your interactivity, social contacts, then of course your behavior, your work pattern, they do get influenced. So therefore these informal groups, although they are outside of the organizational structure, but they do have some influence on these formal groups. Now let's understand why people join groups. Is it like, I know, doesn't matter formal or informal, but you have to join a group. Otherwise, you can't accomplish some of your activities. So these are the particular reasons, theoretically, we found themselves useful so that we can find out why people join groups. First of all, the closeness. Being members of the same group builds ties among the people. So it's part of the social identity theory. It creates your social identity, like you belong to that particular group. So you're not living isolated. So it doesn't matter it's informal or formal, it's the closeness of your social identity. To create that social identity, you actually join a group. Then of course some common goals. Maybe you have some goals which are common to others and you want to achieve that. For that reason, for that moral and practical reason, you join that groups, which is moral and practical support, which is gained by working with others who have the same and similar goals. Then you have something called achievement of personal objectives. Of course, you may have some personal objectives which you think that if you spend some time with your group members, it can enhance your position, it can enhance your prestige within the social context, also within the organizational context, so that you feel that your importance are being considered. So therefore you join a group. And finally, we have something called accomplishment, which is the objective achievement, of course. So when you accomplishing thing as a part of group that they couldn't accomplish on their own. So for perhaps you are joining a group, of course, some objectives that you have, you may not achieve by yourself, but you can achieve it by joining a group. So in this way, it's better if you join a group to achieve your objectives. So these are the reasons normally people, as within the social identity theory, social identical context, they join groups. Now, the final terms for defining the groups, which is a kind of a popular term, or it's a very contemporary research item, which is the in-group favoritism. So this is particularly a concept that we find within a group. So what is that? Here, it actually happens when the members of any group consider themselves as better than the other group. So people not in our group as all the same. So what happens is when you form a group, when you are part of a group, you consider yourself you are the best or you are the better than the other groups. The most typical example you can consider, when we support a football team, you consider your team is better than your rival teams. So that's how it is, and this is called the in-group favoritism. However, theoretically, as per research, it has been found out, or it has been suggested that people with low openness and low agreeableness are more susceptible to in-group favoritism. Do you recall these two terms? Perhaps you may wish to look back at your big five traits. So, which is the low openness and low agreeableness. So, low openness and low agreeableness combined, if you put them together, what they are saying is people that don't like to create new discussions, or don't like to be friendly, don't like to agree to others. Therefore, within the group, they stay within their group and they don't think other groups may have some important inputs which they can take, or they can work together to achieve particular objectives. So therefore this in-group favoritism, some way the researchers, they say is not going to be effective in some cases for organization objectives. Let's consider in your organization you may have so many groups, from sales to marketing, promotions, finance, accounts. So each group, they works independently on their own, but ultimately their target is what? Their target is achieving the organizational objectives, maybe profit maximization, customer satisfaction, market share. However, within a particular group, if they think, well, we are working within the market, so we think we are the best, we are the better than any other group that exists within our organization. That creates some problems in terms of making agreements on decisions. So when you go about group decision making, about its strength and weakness, we know more about why some cases group decision making may be slower, may be inaccurate or ineffective. However, within this term in group favorism, it's just the group favor that group members consider themselves as superior to others. So that will be all for this first segment. In the next segment, we'll start with the learning the stages about how a group can be developed. Thank you.